Yeah, did you guys see that Kevin Durant text message group?
What happened?
You didn't see the Kevin Durant like text message thing, like the groups with Ben Simmons and shit.
That's what the Ben Simmons shit was about today. Okay, yeah. I got you now.
Tyler sent it to me when I was working. I didn't really see it, and I was kind of like, whatever. And then I saw it on. It was on ESPN when I got home. I was looking at it. I was cracking the fuck up. Like, I mean, look, they're all wild. Like, I don't know what to say.
This shit look broke.
Ready to kick it off?
Let's do it.
Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Stoop Life Podcast. If you guys don't know what we're about yet, well, go back and listen to our last 100 episodes, whatever we're at, because we're the best podcast in PA. Now, today we're coming up on football season. Last episode we broke down actual NFL. Now, this episode, we do what we like. The only thing I probably like better than the real NFL, in my opinion, is fantasy football.
Absolutely.
And today we got our actual, listen here, first time I'm ever going to say it and give, accolades when they're due. We got our Stoop Life champion, fantasy football champion with us today. My man, Steve Taylor. You know him. We had to bring him on to talk about fantasy football because, listen, he beat me in the finals. I beat Paul, so technically he beat both of us.
Fucking been there.
Hey, baby.
Fucking ESPN. Yeah. Fuck them. How you take a point away from me because I close my fucking eyes?
Man.
How you take a point away from me? Fuck them.
I didn't change it. I still got my ass.
Fuck y'all.
Yo,
so to be honest though, PJ, you were gonna lose the next week to me anyway. So don't even.
I don't know. I lit up the next week though. I lit up. I don't know.
Nah, you lost.
Trust me, I paid attention to the points. You would have lost either way.
Listen, here's all I want to say, guys. Like when you talk about fantasy football, I've been in a lot of fantasy football leagues. I'm 31 years old. I've been doing fantasy football with my dad in his sports league, his guys, since I was 10. Like I've been doing that since I was 10, and that's actually being competitive, knowing it. Last year, no bullshit. Besides two guys that we had in the group, sorry guys, you already know who you are because you're not in the group anymore. Best league I ever been in. Like best league I ever been in, most competitive league. Everybody till the last week had a chance to make the playoffs. Like my brother went 500 and he didn't even make the playoffs. He wasn't even in like the bye to get in. And I don't really see that a lot in fantasy football leagues, especially a PPR league. So, for everybody that's in our league this year, we got a couple new additions. We got the top 3 dogs right here. But we got the top dog sitting right there in the Eagles shirt. So we're all coming for him. I do want to say something, how Steve thought he got kicked out of the league for a second.
What? Tell these people what happened, please.
Yeah. So, I was sending out updates for the league, and basically what fucking happened was I didn't know when you renew leagues, like it goes to your fantasy dashboard, which people don't see. So when I sent it to people and told them to join, they're like, I don't see it. So we started a whole new league, sent it. For some reason, like 2 or 3 people signed up twice. So I think Marcus was in twice, Ken was in twice, and somebody else was in twice. And when I posted about the second Stoop League, Steve's like, I guess I'm not invited to the second league because you're full. I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, hold up. Let me check this shit real quick. I looked at it.
Hold up. Why take them off? Why they just
He said, I'm out the main league. I'm out the podcast. Yo, every episode we do on here, somebody gets kicked off. Ain't that
I
wild?
swear, Zuckerberg fucking hates us. Let's be real. Zuck hates us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I wish I could say it was my Wi-Fi, but I got that good Wi-Fi. I bought the extra just for this, but yet somehow, look, StreamYard kicks. I use this app StreamYard because right now we're streaming the 3 things right away, same live. It still kicks people off. I was using Zoom. We get echo. We couldn't even get our audio right, so it's like what do? We couldn't go Facebook Live because they got kicking us off halfway through just on Facebook. We might have to start using TikTok Live and start going wild on TikTok with our podcast, boys. We might have to do that.
I mean,
with it.
whatever's going to work.
Yeah, I heard people make money off it. So, I mean, hey, we might do some football podcasts on there, get people talking shit. But anyway,
I'm telling you, we'll do the Sunday joint on there.
Yeah. But anyway, guys, before we do get started, we just want to make an announcement today. Since we have our guy with us right here, we've been talking about it for a while. Me and Paul have been doing it. But we are about to release our first ever Stoop Life gear. Like, it's coming out soon. We're working on it with Steve to get it made. We're going to be coming out with 3 things. First is going to be just the Stoop Life generic brand, just the brand name for the group. Then we're going to make a podcast one, which is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have Steve making the design because we already know he's badass on the designs. And then he already is working on one for the NFL Pick'em group, which if you don't know what the NFL Pick'em group is, it's where you make money, where you just lose like $10 a week. Ain't no big deal. But we're going to announce that later. If those of you in it, you know, it's basically pick each week against the spread, best score win. We're going to have a shirt for that. I can promise you guys this. When he sent it to me, unbelievable, phenomenal. Like, the work that this guy does on shirts, and honestly, anything he does, phenomenal. You know, he's Da Vinci over here. Unbelievable.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you guys absolutely. If you guys do want any gear, check him out. He's on social media, all of them. Much in the Clutch. Check him out. We share him. He posts the best shit. He makes the best stuff. So when you guys get our gear coming out, I can promise you it's going to be made by the best. Ain't no cap with that either. The best. So thanks again, Steve. When we get it out, we're happy to be working with you, man. So anyway, we're already like 10 minutes into this podcast. We didn't even talk about fucking fantasy football yet. But I'm excited for the season. It's my favorite time of the year despite the weather. Like, it's the only thing that actually makes me like not mind the weather because we know football's on.
I know.
Right.
So how about you guys this year? I'm most excited for honestly week 1 because we got week 1 and NFL starts. It's a Thursday night game. We actually get a good game this year again, and right from there, the Eagles should get a win week 1. Paul, I don't know who the Packers play. Who they play?
I really don't know either, to tell you the truth.
We play the Lions, so we're gonna win that game.
Yeah, but let's say I'm pretty sure it's the Lions, which I'm not gonna guarantee a win because they beat us last time. But it should be a fun week. I mean, they got a lot better. I'm gonna watch the Hard Knocks tonight because it's premiere. It's the Hard Knocks and it's Detroit, so it's a good chance to see how this rookie looks, this Hutchinson guy looks. So we're gonna see. I do like Swift, so he gave us problems last time. Jared Goff, he's not a bad quarterback. Let's be real, but we'll see, man. We got new receivers we're testing out.
Is Jared Goff a draft-worthy fantasy quarterback? We'll start there. We'll start with quarterback. Where do you
number 2?
You think he's a good backup?
Good number 2, I think. Yeah. If you look at his numbers last year, they weren't horrible. Even for being in Detroit, fantasy-wise, they weren't horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not drafting him. I wouldn't even pick him up as a free agent. But hey, I mean, would you, Steve? I mean, you're the champion. Jared Goff ever, if possible, going to be on your roster ever.
Here's the thing, though. So he's got weapons. Amon St. Brown, they picked up Chark. He's a big play guy, so he's going to have to deliver with downfield plays. You got Hockenson. You got Swift, who, you know, I'm a big believer in, you know, Philly bias aside. Jamal Williams is a bad backup. And the thing is, they're going to be losing. I think one of the mistakes people make is forget fantasy football is not real football per se, where they could go 0-16 or, you know, 2-15, whatever. And the thing is, they can still add value because of their plays, right? Their stats. So I think he could surprise people. If you're in like a super flex league, he definitely has value because obviously you can start 2 QBs and he's not like complete trash. I just think with players like that, you don't reach for him. You let him fall in your lap and then you use them when you can.
Okay, I like it. So speaking about quarterbacks, let's talk about top 10. who's a guy that you think could fall into the top 10 that's not necessarily viewed at by, these rating people as a top 10 guy? Because I actually got a couple guys on my mind that I think, someone like Jared Goff that people don't really talk about. I think a top 10 guy, as always, he's been in the top 10 the last 5-6 years. Kirk Cousins. People don't like to draft Kirk Cousins. We know Kirk Cousins, but like you just said, just because he sucks on a Monday Night Football game all the time doesn't mean he's not going to be good throughout the year. You could just get a pickup for that Monday Night Football game. But I think Kirk Cousins is a guy that's always there. He's always there, man. It's like, I don't know, man. He was finished top 10 last year, and he's projected around 15 or 16 this year. I'm not going to say he's going to be a boom, but I think he's also a guy that if you don't like to draft quarterbacks early, or if you want to get two guys, he could be one guy that you could get late in the draft that might go below his ADP. Who do you guys have in mind that's like that?
Yeah, Steve, you go first on this one.
Honestly,
just free and easy. His body's moving, and his hands are really, really flying through the zone. That's why he can let deep fastballs get deep.
Oh, I'm here.
Who you got?
Breaking body.
Honestly, you stole the answer I was going to say. I had some Kirk Cousins stats, and that's what I was going to say because, like I said, I like guys who exceed their draft position. And, just to give some stats to, further your point with Cousins, 5 out of the past 7 years, he's been a top 12 guy. He's even finished in the top 8 3 times. He can get 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. Everybody's big on his number one receiving, Justin Jefferson. And obviously somebody's got to get him the ball. So, I think he could produce. I like the fact he plays in the dome too. And they're not necessarily going to be dominating games where they could just feed Cook in the fourth quarter. I think they're going to be in some shootouts. So like you said, whether he wins the game, minute pick, and doesn't win, it doesn't mean he can't get you 300 yards and 2-3 touchdowns. So, and the thing about it is too, like you said, you get him late. So if you're a person who really, really wants to wait on a quarterback and you stack up running backs, receivers, you can get him and he can finish top 10. And, I think people too forget fantasy football is not a yearly game. It's a weekly game that's played for the year, right? So if he finishes in the top 10 most weeks and you didn't have to reach to get another top 10 guy, and they're only the gap between points is say anywhere between 7 to 10, but you're deep at running back, you got great receivers, it's all going to balance out in the end. You want to give yourself as many weeks to go 1-0 as possible.
Paul, you got
honestly, I think when I say it to you guys, I'm like, why? I'm gonna roll with Derek Carr because he's not ranked high in any top 10 I've seen. He's not ranked high in anybody's draft. He's not the first quarterback to come off the board in fantasy. With the weapons he has, I think he's gonna give you 302 touchdowns a game, at least 3 touchdowns. So I can't hold. I gotta roll with Derek Carr on that one. And I was doing a lot of research today on him. I'm like, man, he is not ranked at all on any of these top 10s from any of these guys who are fantasy gurus. So I think he's being slept on this year.
I mean, if you look at the top 10, though, you can kind of say these guys should be ranked in the top 10 because, you got Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, them guys.
Yeah.
I had Derek Carr as one of my sleeper picks, actually, because I believe the same thing as you. He's a guy that, last year, we always seen him, he was always on the block. He's always on the block. Now, this year, you add in Devontae Adams to him. He could be a sneaky guy, kind of like Kirk Cousins guy. He got good weapons. He got a good offense. And a lot of people they're going to be in that division where they're going to be giving up a lot of points no matter how good their defense is. So like Steve just pointed out, if you're down a lot of games, you're going to be throwing the ball a lot. So he could be a sleeper pick there as well.
A name I just thought about too that he kind of falls into because I want to give somebody obviously Carr. He's not bad. He's just outside of most top 10 lists. You get Devontae, who's easily top 3 receiver. But what about a guy like Trey Lance? Because here's the thing. Jalen Hurts was kind of thrown into the mix last year as a starter. Obviously, they plan to have him once we moved away from Wentz. But with his rushing floor and not even having as good as weapons as San Francisco compared to last year, I'm talking about Jalen last year, he was able to be a top 10 quarterback. So I'm looking at their style of play with, like I said, obviously better weapons, a good coaching scheme and everything like that. So I'm looking at somebody like if you're like a late flyer, somebody who's like not necessarily like a deep sleeper, but somebody who legit can be top 10, but is going nowhere in those rankings for most analysts and stuff. I like a guy like Trey Lance.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about him because it's like no one knows what he's going to be like. So I can see people reaching up really high for him, or some people might just want to let him fall. He's going to be one of them guys that's in the draft that you're like, should I take him here? And then you don't take him, he goes 2 picks later. So it's going to be like, man, like, because you don't know. Like we said in other podcasts, we don't know what Trey Lance is going to be. But all I'm going to say is if he is what they're making him out to be with that offense, you just made a good point on how he could be. So, I mean, I know Paul loves him, even though owns the Packers, but he loves him.
I've heard a lot of good things coming out of training camp. Actually, that was my second guy with Trey Lance. Because coming out of training camp, he's slinging it. He's moving. I just don't trust Mike Shanahan to put him in the best situations. So I don't know if his number is going to be as good because they might be running the ball a lot. So, but we'll see though, man. I hope he lets him loose and it looks good for fantasy football.
I would like to see a good quarterback there at Debo. I mean, like people don't like him, but imagine like Colin Kaepernick in his prime playing with Debo. His numbers would have been unbelievable. Like that style that they played with Kittle, if he stays healthy, got a couple running backs there. Like, man, he would have been nasty. So, I mean, I could kind of see that same thing from Trey Lance putting up them numbers. So we'll see. I got 2 more sleepers on here. Number 1, we're going to go by him real quick. But number 2, I want to get your thoughts. Number 1, I talked about him like 3 times last episode. Matt Ryan. Sleeper, bro. Like, I'm going to say he's a sleeper because, like I said last episode, Matt Ryan has been a top 12 fantasy football quarterback his entire career. Every single year he's played. Top 10, except last year. Last year, he didn't have anybody except Cordell Patterson. But this year, like I said last episode, he's ranked number 8 in the NFL when the box is loaded. And when you go to where he's going, you got the number 1 running back where you're going to load the box. Matt Ryan can put up some numbers, especially with Michael Pittman out there. Could be some numbers. But my only question with him is like he could also be a bust because JT, if they get him to the goal line, might take all the touchdowns away from him. So I'd be wary. He's below Cousins, he's below Carr, he's below Trey Lance, but he could be a guy that if you do have a Kirk Cousins playing on a Monday Night Football game, you could pick up Matt Ryan to slot him in because I think he could produce some points on that week. But my second guy, I want to talk about him, Baker Mayfield. I had to bring him up. We don't know if he's going to be the starter yet, but if he is the starter there with the weapons that he has there, how do you think he'll be this year? Because last year, I look back, he was my fantasy sleeper, and he was the biggest bust out of the whole fucking year.
Well,
how do you feel?
Well, it's not like Baker didn't have weapons before. So, Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, I mean, we already saw Robbie Anderson tweet about how he was like, no.
He said that he liked his guy.
He likes his guy. He likes Sam. He does.
He gave a good answer to it, but we all know what he meant.
It was a hell of a cover-up answer. That was a hell of a cover-up answer when he said that.
He was well prepared for that answer.
Yeah, he knew going to the I Am Athlete what he was facing. I like Baker because he's, how do I say this? Like he's willing to do everything to win, but in fantasy, I'm not a huge fan of him. He never put up the numbers for me in fantasy. He lost me a couple of games when I started him. So I don't know. I mean, he's not like he didn't have weapons. He had Jarvis on one side and he had OBJ on one side. Now he has 2 guys on same thing. And he has a decent running back.
So I mean, there's a couple other guys I'd rather have.
Yeah, that's true.
But hey, I mean, you never know. I do want to say he's not a sleeper, but I think he's a sleeper based on where he's been drafted. Right now, this guy is where's my list here? Hold on, let me bring it up real quick. This guy is getting drafted at number 4 right now. Okay, but by all means of ranking, he's either 8, 9, or 10. I'm talking about Lamar Jackson. We're talking about a guy that 2 years ago was top 3. Last year, before he got hurt, was number 1 in the entire league. So if I can get Lamar Jackson coming in the contract year at number 4, That's a sleeper to me. Like that's a sleeper, especially because you got these other guys like Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, who are all going to be 3, and Lamar runs. They got their run game back, so he could get a lot of rushing touchdowns this year. Man,
I'm taking Lamar. If he's sitting there at number 8, I am taking Lamar. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if you got Lamar Jackson at number 8, like I'm gladly.
I'm taking him.
He's our down. League is smart enough to be number 8.
He's not going past 4.
Yeah, he's not going number 4. So it's like we'll see. But I like it. But I want to move on to running backs. Last year, we all know he finished number 1, Jonathan Taylor. He's projected to finish number 1 again. So we want to talk about who's after him. So in a PPR league, where would you guys rank Derrick Henry?
5. I have him personally right now at number 5, bouncing back from a injury. I mean, it is PPR. I mean, he's not really a receptions guy, but he can give you that. So I got him number 5. He's still so dominant. So
I mean, I agree with you, Steve. Where you got him at?
Yeah, I would still have him. I would still have him top 5. I would still have him in the top 5. And the thing about it is, early in the year, he was just going bananas. He was actually getting I hooked about Crook. I think he's going to have.
Man, he's frozen. But I do want to say what he was saying last year before he got hurt. He was getting. Yeah, how many 250-yard games did Henry have in the beginning of the year? It was like, 4 or 5 out of like 6?
5. I mean, he was on his way to another 2,000-yard rushing year.
What I'm going to say, though, is this about Derrick Henry this year. Number 1, he's going to win Comeback Player of the Year. No, but in all seriousness, they don't have it. A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown was that guy when it got into the red zone that they went to get touchdowns too.
Sure.
He's going to get more touchdowns this year, probably. So even though he's not going to get a lot of receptions, he's never going to change that. He might get more touchdowns. So I would take maybe like 15, 16 touchdowns from him as a number 5 running back. That's pretty damn good, especially we know he's going to get 1,500 yards or more. Yeah, I personally, I still have him at number 5 right there as well. But actually, my list, I actually put him number 2. The only reason I put him number 2 is because the other guys that are in the top 5 are all really injury risk. And I don't like taking them guys. You got a guy like Austin Eckler. What are the chances that he stays healthy 2 years in a row? We all know Christian McCaffrey is going to get hurt. And then we got Swift. Swift right there, he gets hurt. Kamara gets hurt. Who else we got in the top 5? We got a lot of guys. Dalvin Cook gets hurt. Joe Mixon gets hurt. Yeah, Najee Harris is a guy that I was going to say to be my running back sleeper as a top guy because Najee Harris finished number 3 in fantasy football last year for running backs. He's ranked at like number 7. I don't know about you guys, but like I really wanted to get him last year. And when I watch sports news and they all talk about, oh well, Pittsburgh lost, this and that, and I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, did anybody actually watch Pittsburgh last year? Ben Roethlisberger was a hindrance to them. I think their offense is better. Like I mean, I like now.
Pittsburgh. Let me tell you right now, Pittsburgh's young core is nasty. The receivers they have, nasty. So Deontay Johnson's a great player, but I don't even think he's the best receiver on the court right now. And that's coming from talking to Steelers fans, seeing how camp's rolling. Now the only problem they have is that
you been smoking that tape. I'm the best in the league. Yeah,
Deontay's great. Listen.
Yeah,
Deontay's great, but they got 2 young guys who are very impressive in my opinion.
Yeah, listen. One thing Pittsburgh always does, they draft good, they get good core. So,
Steve,
who you got in your top 10 that you think could be, number 1 maybe? I mean, JT is going to be number 1, but who's the top 10 guy in your list that you think could potentially have that huge year where they jump out as catch
Honestly,
like the guy.
he gets hurt. He gets hurt a lot, but his per game production is outstanding. It would have to be Dalvin Cook because we've been saying it since he got into the league. If he stays healthy, he's going to be the guy. Like people forget, he's the reason they were comfortable. The Vikings were comfortable moving on from AP and didn't bat an eye. And he gets you the yards, he gets you the touchdowns. Obviously, you really can't stack 8 in the box as much as you'd like because you got Jefferson, you got other guys, and they are truly a balanced team. But he's never really thought of to be a guy who can be the number 1 overall running back, although the talent's always there. This one might be actually a little bit shocking to hear, but I'm gonna go out a little, not too far on a limb, but somebody who you're basically getting him almost, not for free, but way below what his talent level is. That's Saquon Barkley. I believe in the talent. He's still young. I think he's going to be, I think he got to axe the grind. I think he's going to want to prove, hey, you know what? I wasn't healthy the past couple of years. He's a big play threat. He has ultimate job security. He can catch the ball. He's another person. Like if he was, say, he led the league in, rushing touchdowns or something to that effect, and he's the number 1 overall running back, nobody's really going to be surprised. They're going to say, wow, this was a great bounce back year. He has the talent. It's just a matter of, is he going to stay healthy? What's the Giants offense going to look like? But he has the ability.
So is he going to get traded as well to like the Rams?
If they do that, it might be curtains for the next couple of years.
Well, I mean, listen,
so running back.
They're at one of them years too, where it's like Daniel Jones on his last year. Saquon's probably next year, I think. So it's like, hey, if like them guys aren't producing, I'm not like if Daniel Jones ain't producing, like you're probably not going to win unless he's not going to play like Jimmy G. So I do agree with you. He looks like a beast as always too. It's like I just think he's one of them guys that always gets hurt. But like you just said, if he stays healthy, the dude's a freak. Yeah. I do give him the benefit of that last year where he played.
Think about where you're going to get him in the draft too. So even say he doesn't get you to number 1, but say he's back to like rookie of the year, Saquon, where you're going to get him as like maybe like a flex play or low in RB2, that's going to be great value. So I don't even think he has to be number 1 if he's like in the upper echelon of the top 10. That's going to be a steal.
Yeah. So right now he's going in a PPR league. He's getting drafted at number 12. That's not bad. But I want to talk about a guy that's right below him, Alvin Kamara. He's getting drafted at number 13. How do you feel about him? I'm saying pending he doesn't get suspended. If I get Alvin Kamara at number 13 with Jameis Winston coming back, I think
that's a steal.
Like I saw that, I was like, "Holy shit!" But I think a lot of people are drafting right now with the presumption that he's probably going to get suspended. But I was looking into it the other day, and I don't see any news on him getting suspended right now. So I mean, it's all on Watson. They're all focusing on Watson right now. So if he does get suspended, it might not be till next year. So I don't know. But if I get if he's healthy going into final weeks of fantasy football draft preseason, you ain't getting him at number 13. I'll tell you that.
No.
But I saw that and I was like, damn.
So James is hurt.
Who do you have as a fantasy sleeper this year? Who's your main fantasy sleeper running?
Fantasy sleeper. Let me go down to that real quick. I have a few.
Because I had Steve's already got. I had Barkley on mine.
As a running back, let me go to my list.
I know Steve got a couple of them on here.
He does.
I'm going to throw it out to you guys real quick before you get your call. How about Elijah Mitchell from San Francisco?
Oh, he took my ball. I didn't say a lot. But I will second that and turn around. I will say Travis Eden here.
What did you say, Steve?
I said I honestly I disagree. I'm and I had Elijah. In the league that I was in, I had Elijah Mitchell last year. I'm not so big on him this year, and just to give you the quick reasons why. Pretty much everybody in San Fran was hurt last year. He still didn't get 1,000 yards. He only has 6 touchdowns. They used Debo. Now you're adding in Trey Lance, who's going to either run the ball by design or on broken plays. So I'm not that big on him, and I don't want to reach for him this year. And the thing about it is this, too. San Francisco's backfield is almost like the Patriots, where they have a good run game. They're going to utilize it. But pretty much what you think going into the year and what happens in the beginning, middle of the year is never all in line. So I think it's a little bit too tricky. So to be honest with you, I like to minimize risk. I'm not touching him this year.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there because they do have Jeff Wilson coming back, and they kind of remind me of that New Orleans running game back like 5-6 years ago. That the guy that was doing the business, the guy that got touchdowns. It do remind me of that.
Yeah.
For me,
he's not using the pass game.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right.
That's true too. He's not using the pass game at all. For me, I got two. I got Travis Eden Jr. in Jacksonville, and I got also it's gonna be a homer pick for me. I got AJ Dillon. So and I think AJ. Honestly, keep it real with you. I think AJ is gonna be just as valuable as Aaron Jones. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Bringing up their draft stock. So Aaron Jones right now is going around in a PPR league. Aaron Jones is going about number 10. AJ Dillon on the other hand is going about 25. Now I know for back last year that having Aaron Jones was not fun last year. And AJ Dillon they were basically like right. I mean, the funny thing is like Aaron Jones finished number 10 in fantasy football. AJ Dillon finished like 13, and he didn't play as many games. That's a sleeper right there. Especially you look at your Packers this year. They don't have Adams. Like, will they rely more on the run game? I mean, they got a good run game, so I like it.
What they both do is catch balls. They both Aaron Jones and him. They both catch the ball back. So I can definitely see a lot of dump offs, a lot of quick little out routes to them, and I can see that happening. That's why I gotta play AJ as a sleeper. Nobody's speaking about him in fantasy too much. He's not ranked high at all. So
I agree. So Steve, how do you feel about Travis Etienne?
I like him. I think that it's unfortunate when guys get hurt. Because I had James Robinson in one of my other leagues, and he was doing great. But I felt like the same thing with like AJ Dillon, a couple of these other backfields where you got two really talented guys, and they kind of get in each other's way. So I feel like having one guy kind of out of the way, even if it's due to injury, will allow you to kind of feature a guy and see what you got in them. Because I think the Jags are going to be sneaky good. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs or anything crazy. Probably not going to win any more than like 5 or 6 games. But I think they're probably going to be fun to watch, and they're going to score, I think, a little bit more points than people project. So you got a guy who can run and catch. He's going to be like, a poor man, like a little Alvin Kamara's like little brother on a worse team.
Yeah, I agree with you there. They're going to be one of them teams that it's always in the game, but they just don't win it.
Exactly. Especially when you look at their division.
Me personally, listen. Me personally, I ain't touching shit that has to do with Doug Peterson. Nah, for real.
Yeah.
Doug Peterson, you
disrespect Dougie K. What's wrong?
Hey, look.
Now I'm deep.
Look, we still got a parade.
We got you one of these.
We still got a parade.
Listen, he had the luckiest. I love that we won.
Dougie P bring you one of those rings.
Yeah,
I couldn't
jewelry,
stand that
man.
guy. Like he does like to utilize his receivers out of the backfield though, so it is good for Travis Etienne. I feel bad for James Robinson because he is a good back. So I mean,
he needs to go somewhere else.
I do want to go somewhere else. We got
up in LA this year.
He might. We got to talk about running back bust. I want to throw one guy out there that everybody didn't even jump on board for him till like week 5 when he was already killing it. I think a bust this year is going to be James fucking Conner. Everybody's going to be jumping on board. And man, ain't doing that.
That's the bust of the year.
I was just about that was my first fucking
of the year.
And the funny thing is, the fact that we all say that, he's probably going to repeat. Watch.
He's probably going to have 16 touchdowns this year.
I don't see it.
He's not.
But he's a bust right now to me.
He's not. And here's the thing, though. So I don't know. Like, obviously, it's not the end-all, be-all. But one of the things that I like to look at when I'm going over rankings and guys I like to reach for is, your strength of schedule. So the thing about it is strength of schedule is not on his side. I don't believe he's going to be that efficient with his touches as far as getting that many touchdowns. And on top of that, before last year when he wasn't last year he was a kind of a timeshare back and he was just super efficient. But before that, when he had to be a feature back, he didn't consistently stay healthy. So you kind of have to expect him to miss like 2-3 games or be on a snap count at some point in time. So I think last year, honestly, was an anomaly. If you got him great, and you didn't have obviously you got him basically for free, and he returned RB1 value. He's the bust of the year at the running back position. I don't believe in it, and if it happens, good for somebody else. He's not going to be on my teams unless I'm absolutely desperate or he falls in my lap.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So, who's another guy you guys have? Besides,
at the running back position?
Yeah, at the running back spot. Yeah,
I think this might be an easy one. and because you haven't mentioned it first, Cordell Patterson. I don't think he's going to have half the decent year that he had last year. He's the only person there at this point. Kyle Pitts as well. So I'm pretty sure they're going to key a little bit more on Kyle Pitts, sorry. And there's no Russell Gage. There's no Julio. So a lot of touches and throws are going to go towards Cordell. So
they got that rookie Aguilar. They got rid of.
That's true too.
We got the bust of the year last year, Mike Davis. What the hell?
I'm gonna be honest with you.
That guy killed everyone.
Fuck that fat fuck. Fuck that overweight lover. He's an overweight fucking lover who acts like he can run the ball. He's an offensive lineman who runs the ball. Fuck him. You know why? Why? Ask me how many touchdowns he scored this year. All right, then.
He's ranked number 75 for me this year. He's at Baltimore.
That's even too fucking high for him. Listen, he's number 75 in your book and number 1 in your fridge. That fuck. I'm mad, dog. I was stuck with him for half the fucking year. I'm mad. Fuck him.
Listen, he's one of them guys. Yeah.
This is so I already talked about Elijah Mitchell because he was one of the names I was going to mention as a bust. Now, maybe this is why I kept getting, randomly kicked out of the, the app ring thing. I promise you, this is not a hot take, but I think one of the busts of the year is going to be CMC. And I don't think that means he's going to be terrible, but hear me out. What I'm saying by bust is he's not going to return the draft stock where you get him because the past couple of years, you have to reach for him. Everybody's expecting him to be top 5. We know he can be, but the truth of the matter is this. He's only had that one really, really, really good historic year. But other than that, he's only had 2 1,000 yards season as a rusher. I'm not totally convinced just because he's like the do-it-all, weapon for that team. He hasn't shown throughout the consistency of his career that he's really a touchdown guy. So pretty much you're banking on him to stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to do, and just be the PPR receptions and everything monster. And like I said, in the first round of a draft, I like ultimate security. Somebody's going to just keep listening to the books. He keeps getting hyped up. He's got like a 98 or 90-something rating in Madden, and people think he's just going to walk back in and just be this dominant elite player. And it's like, he might be, but like I said, for me, I like good return on investment. He's very risky, and I would rather somebody else take that risk and try to figure it out versus, get him and then crap. I put, maybe like last year you had the 101 pick. You take him. He's great the time he plays pretty much unless you got, some steals in the draft like Kupp or JT or somebody else, you were screwed. And I don't want to be screwed in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. He has a big question mark right now. I can't take it.
I like your take. I can't.
If it's a steal, maybe third. If he slips somehow to the third round, maybe. But I'm not taking a risk on him. He's hurt.
And he's not and he's not going to slip that late. So that's the problem.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the guys that's going to go to like pick 8 or 9. That guy's going to be like, oh well.
If somebody's going to be pissed off.
I'm not taking it.
Half the year that they got fucking CMC and thought he was going to do something.
Yeah, I like your take on it though. I'm saying you didn't bring up the injury. You brought up his stats and what he's done, and I agree with you there. I actually do because I actually think he's going to stay healthy this year, but it's just not going to be. It's going to be like Saquon last year, where he wasn't healthy but was and played, and he just sucked. His numbers.
This is the thing. Carolina's they're not going to make the playoffs. And like, how many touchdowns do you think the team's really going to score? And the thing is, if you project him being, the main guy to score, the defenses know that. I think they're going to be losing in games, which he'll get dump offs, he'll get the catches. But I question the volume as far as like, are the yards actually going to be there, whether it's rushing or receiving, and touchdowns. So if he has, say, 1,100 yards rushing and 600 yards receiving, and then just say 7 or 8 total touchdowns, that's not bad. But for where you're drafting him, that's not enough.
That's not enough for me.
I'm avoiding. avoiding him at all costs.
I'm avoiding fully. I'm not even. He slips my way. I'll take Mike Davis.
Oh wow!
It's like that.
You might as well just take that roster slot and just like cut it off.
Oh man.
Let's move on now. Let's talk about wide receivers this year. Last year we had an absolutely astronomical year by Cooper Kupp. He scored 439 fucking points. The number 2 is Devontae Adams. He was 100 points less. Like, unbelievable. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say somebody's going to produce like that again this year. I'm going to say he's not going to either. Who do you think the top guy is going to be this year? Do you think it's going to be Cooper Kupp again?
It's Cooper Kupp. For me, it's Cooper Kupp for sure. Or Tay. It's Cooper Kupp. It's Cooper Kupp or Tay, honestly.
Steve shaking his head. Who you got? Who you think?
Nah.
I don't think.
To be honest with you, just being honest with you. So here's the thing, right? I'm gonna start with this because it's the take I have on Cooper Kupp is similar to CMC. He had one of the best historic years. So I looked at some of the historic years throughout fantasy football and football history. I'm gonna just read you some names and tell you what the drop-offs were from their historic year to the next year, right? So Jerry Rice, the 22 touchdown season, the next year he had 50 less fantasy points. That's a 20% drop-off in production. Rice in 95 when he set the just hear me out. Just hear me out. Rice when he set the initial mark for most receiving yards in a year, that was 95. 96, he had 105 less points. That's 36% less production. Marvin Harrison, where he set the receptions record in 02. Next year in 03, and we know he had Peyton Manning throwing the ball, 56 less points, 23% less production. Steve Smith in 05, when he won the Triple Crown like Kupp did, the next year he had 58 less points, 25% less production. Moss in 07 with the 23 touchdowns, 124 less points. Now, granted, Brady was hurt, but he was at such a high mark that you had nowhere to drop off. That was a 43% drop off. And then same thing, AB from 2015 to 16, 51 less points. Same thing with Julio, the same years when they both had over 1,800 yards. Next year, 63 less points, 26% drop off. And then the last one, Michael Thomas from years 2019 to 2020. Granted, he did get hurt. He had 182 less points. But if you go off his per game production and scale it to the whole year, he would have only had just over 1,000 yards, which would have been, not that good, right, compared to his historic year. So I'm saying all to say this with Cooper Kupp. He had a great year. This was the first time he actually even made the Pro Bowl. Stafford, one positive I'll say is this. The only person who didn't have a massive drop-off with like an all-time great historic year was Megatron. At the year after he had that 1,900-yard season, Stafford was throwing him the ball. I don't think that means it's a direct correlation with Cooper Kupp to do it, but let's be honest. Last year was a complete anomaly. He pretty much came out of nowhere. He was a good receiver. He was thought to be good for PPR. I do not see him being number one. If he's not top 5, I won't even be surprised. I think this year is between Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. These guys are young. They're studs. They're ready to go. They have arrived. They didn't have to coming out party or have to wait. They have arrived, and I just believe in the talent, and I just believe in history, right? So if Cooper Kupp is another anomaly and he does something that's rare, great. But also Allen Robinson's there, and I'm not saying that Allen Robinson is going to compete as a wide receiver 1, but he is going to steal some of those touchdowns away. And the thing about it is this: Cooper Kupp's going to get the number 1 cornerback matchup. So the Rams are all in on winning. They're trying to get another chip. They're not going to force feed Cooper Kupp just because he's open. I think he can still get open. He's going to produce, but he's not going to be the number 1 receiver this year. I'd be very shocked if he was.
Yeah, that's a good take right there. I mean, and the thing is, like, history, man. Like
history. I trust history.
History.
Yeah, and on top of that, what happens when these teams win the Super Bowl the year after?
Well, that's the other thing you brought up, Bobby. That's a good point. So just from a fantasy perspective, his strength of schedule is actually the 7th toughest. And on top of that, like you said, when you are the defending champs, you get your best game out of all of your opponents. They're already putting a number 1 cornerback on them. So I just look at the pathway to success being more difficult. And I look at last year, coming into the year, he was a steal. Like, you were getting him, not in super late rounds, but his return on investment was great last year. I don't like paying last year's price for something this year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I like the take Chase and Jefferson being number one. I agree with you there. And I actually think they're going to be number one and number two by at least 30, 40 points. I really do.
I can see it happening. For sure.
Them too, man. Justin Jefferson and Lamar, man, they're different. I can see that happening.
I'll never count out Devontae Adams, but you don't have Rodgers throwing to him. You got Derek Carr, it's a little different.
True.
So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a secret that I look for in fantasy football, right? So, like you said, trusting history and evaluating things. To me, one of the pathways to you, a wide receiver being top 5 or potentially number 1, you have to get at least double-digit touchdowns. And typically, the only way you get to double-digit touchdowns is if you have a quarterback who is going to throw for 30. Now, maybe Derek Carr can, but look at his number 1 options the past couple of years, right? Hunter Renfrow, when he was the number 1 option, he was kind of capped at 9. The year before that, Darren Waller, he was capped at 9, and they both had 1,100 yards. Now, obviously, Tay is better than those guys, but you're going to need to have Carr throw at least 30 touchdowns for his number 1 option to get minimum 10. But Tay is, he's been elite. So you're thinking really 12, 15 plus for him. I don't see that direct pathway, and you're going to need those touchdowns to be in the mix. So be honest with you, I don't see unless their chemistry is still, great from college and they just know each other and, they have to score a lot of points. I don't see it, to be honest.
I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, though. Derek Carr.
Yeah, Derek Carr. Hey, he's going from one Hall of Famer to another Hall of Famer.
And to that, I'm gonna have to go with Steph Curry. I don't know. We're gonna see. I'm gonna sleep on that one though.
I agree with you there too. That's why I always in my leagues. I literally would take Devontae Adams before some of these other running backs because he had Rodgers. Flat out.
Let's see. Here's the other thing, right? If he doesn't get those double-digit touchdowns, the only way he's going to finish, because I'm going, like I said, off of history, the only time a person finishes as wide receiver 1 where they're not getting double-digit touchdowns, they got to get at least 1,500 yards or more. And same thing, Carr doesn't throw that much for him to, get that many yards. So Carr would really have to throw for mid 4,000s, probably 4,500 yards or more. Now that division is tough and it's competitive. He might. But he also might make mistakes and then turn the ball over. So I'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some sleepers here. And my number 1 wide receiver sleeper is a guy that should not be on here. He's on here every year. And I know you love him, Steve. Brandon fucking Cooks. Can you put some respect on that guy's fantasy value?
I got something to say on that. I got something to say about that. I got something to say about this.
Consistently getting 1,000 damn near every year. He's a beast.
But so check this out, guys. So we want to talk about Mr. Consistency. At least 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns in 6 out of the past 7 years.
Houston.
Right, and the thing is, the only time he didn't do it was because of injury. Otherwise, we'd be talking about him doing it the past 7 years. Here's the thing. He's outperformed his average draft position almost every year. And then here's another thing that I like about him, because I've had him last year and I've, had him other times. He's a person, I don't know how often people pay attention to this. In those 3 weeks of the fantasy football playoffs, he consistently produces during those times, and he's a wide receiver 1 during that time. So the thing is, when you need him to come through most, he does, and you get him at a low draft price. He's unbelievable value every year. I love him.
I hate him because I always say, man, and then he comes back to bite my ass in the playoffs. I'm like, fuck.
I never get a chance to get him. I think I want to do the Saints. And that's it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Who besides him, Paul? Who you got as a sleeper wide receiver? There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them this year.
I'm gonna go with your man crush, and that's Russell Gage. I think he's gonna get a lot of balls thrown to him. He's gonna be in between. That's your boy. That's your man crush right there, man. If you were listening to this episode a year ago, Russell Gage, you would have thought he was married to him. Because every other word was Russell Gage. But the fucker was right. So
he won me my fantasy league the year before.
He was right. He has every right to have a crush on him.
Touchdowns, and then last year he I don't want to talk about it.
Now here's the thing, though. He's gonna be with Mike Evans, so he's gonna get a lot more looks than what he got in Atlanta. So and he got Brady throwing the ball. I do, and He has Julio too. So I mean, he's gonna be that guy. I think he's gonna get a lot of the. Brady likes the little guys, right?
The thing about Russell Gage is that until Chris Godwin comes back, he's going to be Chris Godwin.
Exactly.
Got 8, 9, 10 receptions a game.
Exactly. But how many touchdowns he had last year? 8?
I don't remember. He was good. He was really good last year.
You raved about him. My dumb ass didn't pick him up.
Yeah, I remember not drafting. That was my man, Chris Godwin. I'm not sure how many games he's out this year, so it kind of worries me with Russell Gage because I really do see like we know how Brady is. Brady has his favorite guy, and then after that, they only get looked at like 3 or 4 times. You know, they'll get the reception, this and that, but when Godwin comes back, it's kind of like Russell Gage is going to be like Tyler Johnson.
You know what, Bobby? You saying something about Godwin reminds me of somebody, right? So you know how Godwin had a lot of hype a couple years ago, and then Jameis threw the 5,000 and the 30-30. So this is who I believe could potentially be this year's, Chris Godwin of a couple years, Gabriel Davis. So the reason why I feel so strongly about him, Emmanuel Sanders left, Cole Beasley left. So you got a lot of targets on the table. The past couple years, he had less than 40 receptions. He had 6 and 7 touchdowns. So now I think he's going to be the clear-cut number 2 receiver, behind Diggs. And if you just say, hey, he's going to get more than 40 catches, right? And if you say we just double his touchdown production, now he's right there in double digits. Now he's right there at 1,000 yards. He has a pathway to be a top 12 receiver, and he's going at like low end number 2 or wide receiver 3 value. And I think he's going to be sneaky good. And he's got an elite quarterback too. He's a big play guy. We saw what he did in the playoffs. That's a guy that's going under the radar that I think a lot more people should be paying attention to, especially since everybody is projecting Josh Allen to be QB1 again.
I agree. That's a hell of a take right there. I think we are sleeping on Gabe Davis a little bit. That's a hell of a take right there.
Last year, I actually had him as one of my under the radar guys. No one knew who he was. I'm like UCF. I remember him. I actually drafted him last year. I don't know if it was in our league or my other league. And I thought he was going to produce because, Josh Allen, you think Josh Allen's going to throw a lot. Who's going to be the number 2 receiver? And there really wasn't one last year. And then at the end of the year, Gabriel Davis showed that. And people kind of forget about that because they only remember the game of what happened in that Bills-Chiefs game, but they don't remember Gabriel Davis really the guy that had, 4 or 5 touchdowns? And
he went bananas.
Yeah. He's good, man. Especially like you said, when you're talented, you're big, you're fast, and you're the number 2 guy.
Right. I like his prototype. 6'2" guy. He has good ball skills. Obviously, Allen's got a cannon. And like I said, to get 6 and 7 touchdowns when you're technically on that receiving core was really the number 4 option, 5 if you want to include the tight ends. I think, like I said, I think he's going to be this year's, 2020 version of Godwin when he just broke, or 2019 when he just broke out. I think that's going to be Gabe Davis this year.
I can see that. That's a hell of a take.
I like it there. Now we're going to move on to number 2 targets. A lot of people like to say tight ends. Last year, Mark Andrews was top guy, tight end. I don't know if he's going to repeat this year. I think Travis Kelce's probably going to be top all this year, especially with who's in Tyreek Hill. Unless he gets hurt, which he's kind of proves that he really doesn't get hurt for a while.
He doesn't get hurt,
Yeah. So, do you guys think Kelce Andrews is going to be number 1 tight end, or do you guys have another guy that's going to be a number 1 guy?
I think Kelce is definitely going to be number 1, and Mark's probably going to be number 2. Don't sleep on Kyle Pitts. So those are 3 I'm looking at right now. That's kind of like I like those 3 for a sure thing. After that, it's kind of like if George Kittle's and Darren Waller's around, that's my top 5 right there. So after that, honestly, tight end is like a dead land. After that, it's kind of like pick and choose which one you want.
I think there's a lot of guys that could potentially put up a lot of numbers.
Yes.
But the top
Steve has one. I'm going to tell you right now. Steve has one. Me and Steve have talked about this one before. The one tight end I'm thinking of. And I love him to death. It just sucks that he's in my division. But he got it. I'm going to let him explain.
I think I know who you're talking about.
I'm trying to think who was that.
We were sitting at the table. we're at the table and you bring him up, I lit the fuck up because I was like, I fucking love this guy, but I hate that he's on another team.
Top guy or a sleeper? Sleeper pick?
He's probably a mid guy. I would probably he's a little probably outside of the top 5, like 6 or 7.
Oh, you're talking about Hawkins.
Yes. That's my guy.
Like
that's somebody to look at.
He is, but I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't put him on my list officially because one, I did low key forget about that, and I think he's good enough that he shouldn't really be a sleeper anymore, especially after the beginning of last year. But I'm gonna tell you somebody that 2 guys. One, and I hate to admit it, because you're talking about somebody's in your division. This person's in my division, but I gotta call a spade a spade. It's Dalton Schultz, and the reason why is because he's not the big name. But here's the thing, right? So last year, these are all the guys he ranked ahead of as far as fantasy points, and it's not being made a big enough deal. Pitts, Kittle, Waller, Goddard, Ertz, Hockenson. He finished with more points than all of those guys last year. Amari Cooper left, so that means there's going to be more targets on the table. He had a lot of red zone looks. Him and Dak have good chemistry. And last year he had 8 touchdowns. So there's a pathway for him to get to those double-digit touchdowns like I talked about, because his quarterback is probably going to be in the ballpark of 30 touchdowns. You still got Gallup coming back from that ACL. So he could potentially be the number 2 target in a high-octane offense, and he has, touchdown equity. So I think he's not being talked about enough. I don't like him. He's a Cowboy, but guess what? In fantasy, it's all good. Give me the points, lose the game. It's a win-win situation. So I would draft him on my team. And the Cowboys in the past have shown a use of the tight end with Witten. He can kind of be like the Jason Witten of this generation, if he stays healthy. The other guy I'm looking at in that tight end spot, I don't know exactly how to say his last name. Forgive me for that. But Pat Freiermuth off of Pittsburgh. So the thing is, as a rookie tight end, he was actually second out of all tight ends behind Travis Kelce in red zone targets. That's a great stat moving forward. I think they're going to be safe when they throw the ball. When they do get inside, they're probably either going to use Najee Harris with running or passing or play action, and then you can always use the tight end. And the thing about it is, he did it with mediocre quarterback play. So if he gets anything better and he continues to progress, his numbers should be better. And then the thing about it is, at the end of the day, and I had to, kind of dig to look this up, he had the 10th most points ever for a rookie tight end. So obviously Pitts had a great year last year. You got to think of the Jeremy Shockeys of the world, people who've had historically great tight end seasons. That typically doesn't happen as a rookie. So to me, it's a good sign. Pittsburgh is going to be right in the mix. They don't lose a lot of games. So I think he's going to be a key part of the passing game, and he's getting overlooked.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's it. He's a hell of a player, man.
He's got to have right on my list there as well. I like him. I don't know how to say his name either, but I know at the end of the year he was getting
Freiermuth.
He
was picking up some momentum. Yeah.
He was.
He's definitely one of my sleepers. According to ADP, people know about him though. He's going number 11, which I actually was surprised to see right now because not a lot of people remember who he is. I want to say another sleeper on here. He got hurt last year. Is another guy in your division, Paul. Irv Smith from Minnesota. I mean, my man got hurt last year. Killed.
Consistent.
Body. Guys yeah.
He's really good.
You're basically getting him for free too, so you can get him as a number 2 tight end at the literally end of your draft, and he can return, high value.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you.
He's somebody to look after. How do you guys feel about Kyle Rudolph?
He's over the hill in my book.
He's done, bro. I'm
good.
What's that guy getting Brady? He's gonna try and fill in to fill Gronk, but let's be real, they're not Gronk. Cameron Brate and Rudolph ain't Gronk.
Yeah,
they're not.
That's true. He ain't Gronk.
He was number 7 or 8 last year. They ain't gonna beat Gronk.
He's the classic case of he's better in real football than fantasy. Fantasy is about the stats, the points, the yards, the touchdowns. He's not going to be getting that. So I'm not even looking for him at all, to be honest with you.
Okay. How about your tight end, Dallas Goedert?
I mean, I love him. I mean,
I got him ranked in tier number 1 and tier 3 at number 7. But he could be in that top
spot for him.
Yeah, he could be right there with about yeah, I think he could produce like Dalton Schultz, like right there. Maybe not as high, but like close, like right around that.
And I got one more.
I wouldn't reach for him, but
I'm not. You're right, Bobby. I'm not going to reach for him, but I think I think Jalen is the long-term answer for us at quarterback. I don't know where all the hate comes from. I love Jalen, and I think he's going to produce. What I'm looking at with Goddard is I think Goddard and Hurts can kind of be this generation of Cam Newton and Greg Olsen. So that's kind of like how I look at him, the usage and stuff. He might not wow you with the gaudy numbers, and he's not going to break tight end records, but he's going to be steady. He's going to be consistent as long as he's healthy. I like the addition of AJ Brown. Smith is obviously great as well. I think he just kind of has like a cap at his ceiling because he's not the guy and because Jalen's not a super prolific passer. But for fantasy, and the thing about it is it doesn't take much to be a top 10 tight end, let's be honest. So I think he's going to be right in the mix. I agree with Bobby. And that 6 to 8 range is where I like him.
Yeah, I agree. Who do you got as your biggest bust? Because it's hard to pick a tight end bust because, like you just said, it's not that hard to be a top 10 guy. So
Literally
it's
throw it
be a top 10 guy. My top bust. I hate to say this because I love the guy. But I think a lot of people are going to be reaching for Zach Ertz because of what he did last year when he got traded. I think he's going to be a Philly Zach Ertz again at the end of his career where he didn't really produce. But other than that, I mean, it's kind of hard to pick a bust. So I'm curious to see who you guys have.
I mean, I definitely agree with you, Bobby. Not so. If I were to, again, this is all about where you're drafting them or where they're expected to go. If I had to pick another bust, it might be George Kittle. And the thing about it is, we're living off of the high that he had a few years ago, where he set the then record for receiving yards as a tight end. I don't think he's ever going to approach 1,300 yards as a pass catcher again. Again, Trey Lance is going to be great for fantasy, but part of his greatness comes with him rushing the ball. So I don't see him to be a lock to get 1,000 yards. I don't see him to be a lock to get 10 touchdowns. And the thing is, because he's so great at blocking and they like to run the ball, he's a little bit better in real life than he is fantasy. So I don't trust him to, keep producing at a high end level. Whereas though, like, a couple years ago, he was thought of as arguably the best tight end in the league. I don't see that. I don't think he's going to be close to Andrews. I don't think he's going to be close to Kelsey. If Kyle Pitts scores some more touchdowns, all bets are off there too. So to be honest, even if he is a top 5 tight end, which he might not be, I think there's going to be a bigger gap in points, and I think that's going to confuse people with the rankings.
Yeah, good point. I agree with you. I will say one year when I won my fantasy league, I picked a lot of guys that were injured the year before. So maybe I'll go back to that stat and get Kittle. Kittle's one of the guys I never wanted to get, though. Like, even when he had that year, I felt the same way. I thought it was like that Cooper Kupp year. It was just an anomaly. Like, he's a great player. I love watching him play. Dude's energy. But it's like he's not like Kelsey. He's not like Gronk. I just don't see it. Well, Paul, who you got? Who you got as your top bust? Is it going to be Robert Tonyan or is he a sleeper?
Nah, that's my sleeper. Stop it. But
Big Bob.
That's my sleeper. And he's 100% healthy. If we're looking at the top 10 and we're looking at the full body of work of what we have here with these tight ends, Noah Fant is always going to be my bust because
if you draft him,
he's ranked in the top 15 every year since he's been a pro.
He's at Seattle. Like, I'm not taking him.
He's not going to do shit in Seattle to smoke a lot of weed, probably.
Hey, I mean,
he smoke for Sundays. Listen. He doesn't score touchdowns. He gets 2 receptions a fucking game.
Well, there's certain guys that you have.
Geno Smith.
Don't like. There's certain you guys have certain guys that you draft that like they produce that 1 year for you. You'll never draft them again. No Fant last year. I kept him in my roster. Like, all right, he's going to turn it around. And then I was like, this dude, I went in to spite him. He's got to go. I'd rather have fucking Mike Davis as my tight end, but I can't do that. I mean, no offense, bro. Is one of the guys. He's talented. The guy's a talented guy, but he just produces.
He don't get the job done. He's a block. He wants to be a receiving tight end. He's a blocking tight end. And that's a receiving tight end. Yeah. He's one of those guys who like I said, he's going to give you 2 receptions a game. Do you really want that on your team? He's better. Like Steve says, he's better for the real life football.
You know,
He's
I
not
just thought
fantasy.
about another guy that has big bust potential, and it's because they're riding a high, making it to the Super Bowl. I think Hayden Hurst, right? Because here's the thing: they already have one of the best wide receiver trios. Like I said, they're riding off of the high of making it to the Super Bowl. A lot of people are all in on Joe Burrow, and rightfully so. So I think there's this idea that he's just going to somehow just come into the mix and be another part. And I think he could easily be overlooked. And the thing about it is, he might actually produce enough, big games. Say he ends up being a top 12 tight end. I could see a situation where maybe almost half of his points come from like 2 to 3 games, and he'll have like 2 touchdowns and maybe 80 yards and go off because Chase or T. Higgins is getting double, triple teamed or whatever. And then the next month he'll give you like 2 catches for 30 yards. And I don't like to have week to week inconsistency. Cincinnati's going to have a great offense. But I think, and on top of that, too, his strength of schedule is pretty difficult, at least from the tight end perspective. So it's more the reason why, he's just going to get overlooked in the passing game. So I would say proceed with caution with him. Don't think he's going to be the breakout tight end of this year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's true. Now we got to talk about something else we don't really like because they don't generally get the receptions, all this shit. We got defense. Fantasy football is part of defense, team defense. Last year, Buffalo was number 1. Dallas was number 2. Who do you think is going to be number 1 defense this year? Do you think it's going to be one of them or somebody else? Because there's a couple other teams out there that a lot of people are overlooking that might climb up the leaderboard there or might fall off.
It's definitely not going to be Dallas because they were depending on a lot of turnovers. They gave up yards and stuff. So I just think that's an unrealistic path to this year. So it's definitely not going to be them. Buffalo could just because of their division. I think like a sneaky good pick to take that top spot. And I don't think they're the most talented defense, but you got to look at their division. It's the Colts. Like I think they're the favorite to win their division. And if you look at, they could play ball control with Jonathan Taylor. Obviously they were real salty about just missing the playoffs last year. And like I said, you still got 2 games against Houston, 2 games against Jacksonville. So you can just get sacks and turnovers galore in those 2 games alone. So I think there's a pathway for them to get it. Will they? Maybe not, but just keep an eye out on them.
Well, I do want to say this before we move on to another team. You didn't see the news today, did you, about Indianapolis?
No, I didn't. It was a busy day. What happened?
Shaquille, a.k.a. Darius Leonard, is out, and they don't know when he's going to be back. He got hurt.
That's big.
That's big.
Ooh, that's a big deal.
They just dropped.
They just moved out of my top.
Never mind.
15.
Never mind.
Take that back.
That's a big
I'm
deal.
glad you said it before I did, Steve. I'm glad you said it before I did.
It's all right. It's all right.
I literally just saw it maybe like an hour ago before we did the podcast, and they said he'll be back sometime during the year. You never want to see that. More information will be out tomorrow, which August 9th. We're doing the podcast right now, August 9th. As of now, he's out for the foreseeable future, which is absolutely I mean, eventually everybody was going to know, so I'm not giving you guys sleeper advice here for fantasy. But I agree. They would have been a team that I would have looked at. But sadly, as of right now, they're dropping off.
That's too big of a hit. It's too big of a hit.
You just lost the guy who's a turnover machine. He's a turnover machine, sideline linebacker. I raved about him last year. I said he could have been defensive player of the year.
I'm gonna look him up right now to see what's injury. Remember I picked him defense. I jinxed him. I picked him to win defensive player of the year. 2 days later, he gets fucking hurt.
I think I did too. I think I picked him as defensive player of the year as well.
It says right here, no return timetable for Shaquille Leonard. I don't know what happened, but potential guy out there they could get Roquan Smith. Apparently he's asking out of Chicago, so it ain't Leonard, but hey, you just lost Leonard. I tried to pick up Smith. It's not gonna be the same thing, but
he'd look good in Roquan Smith.
Yeah, well,
listen, our linebackers are solid, so I'm not worried about him. I'll take him. Yeah,
I mean Chicago. They're not going to do nothing this year, so I can see them trading. Trade target could be Indy. I don't think that pushes them back up to number 1 like we were just talking about, but
it gives them a push though. They're with him, they're top enough.
Besides Indy, I want to talk about another team. I'm not going to talk about the LA Chargers because we all know they just signed a bad play. But how about the New England Patriots as a sleeper team?
I can see it.
Last
They're
year,
always good. Their defense is always set. He lost JC though.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, they signed all them free agents 2 years ago, and it's the second year under Belichick. We know what happens. They produce.
No, you're right.
mean,
And the thing is, too, Bobby, I think people forget defense/special teams. They always got these little tricky kind of plays where they get a sneaky touchdown here or there. That's the kind of stuff that counts. And like those, I think it was like last year, it was like a couple weeks in a row. They were either getting a pick six or, some type of special teams touchdown or something crazy. So just the fact that they're always, planning to, make you play left-handed and do something and catch you off guard, I could definitely see that too.
Yeah. Like, fantasy football defense is crazy. Like, I'm going to read the rankings from last year, like the finish. It was Buffalo, Dallas, New England, Miami, New Orleans, Tampa, Indy, Tennessee, Denver, and Arizona. Nobody was going to have a way to pick Miami, New Orleans, Tennessee, or Arizona.
Well, to be honest with you, knowing what we know about the Colts now, everything I said about the Colts could apply to the Bucs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they could have a pathway to doing it.
I feel like last year when I took the Bucs, I feel like I took them because, like you just said, they're a safety net. They're going to produce. Most of their games are pretty damn easy. So I mean, they're a safe pick. I like them. There's another team I like out there that could be a sleeper. How about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Why not? Our division's not great, and I think we will win it. So if we say get ahead in games, and we're trying to either run the clock out, and then now you're forced to be in predictable situations, that opens up to those sacks, those strip sacks for fumbles, picks or even pick sixes. And, we got sneaky good special teams too. We'll get a punt return, a kickoff return every now and again. So, I mean, I could see it all bias aside.
Do you know what their draft position is right now? Average draft from defense?
If I had to guess, I would say somewhere between 15 and 20.
Yeah, they're number 20, which is actually pretty crazy. If you look at the projections, if you look at the projections on what they're projected to score, they're projected to be number 9. And they're getting drafted at number 20. I'll take that value all fucking day.
All day.
Yes.
I mean, listen, I don't like taking my team's defense in fantasy football. If they have a bad week and then my fantasy team loses too,
it's a double whammy.
It's just not fun because I'm mad. Listen, I can get over them losing the game, like it sucks. But like that fantasy game, if I lose that fantasy game because they lost the game, I don't want to talk to the person for a while. I don't want to talk to them. It's bad. But I think they could be there. Who do you guys got as a potential sleeper that, or do we go over them all? Because we went over a lot of them.
How about the Chargers? A lot of people aren't speaking about that defense, man.
That's true.
Why? I don't know why. Like I believe the Chargers are right now. They're a sleeper team. Period. They just acquired all these acquisitions.
They could be.
Granted, it looks good on paper. With defense, you can actually put your defense together a little bit better than the offense that you just threw out there. And you have a guy like Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson being thrown in the mix, along with a Derwin James and a Joey Bosa. I'll take that any day. Any day. That's sacks and turnovers all day right there.
I mean, unbelievable. They're going to be great.
Yeah.
I agree. I think they could potentially be number 1, too. They got a tough division, though. That's the thing.
Their division is the main reason I don't see them being number 1, because as great as they are on paper, there's just going to be some games that Mahomes just goes crazy. Russ could go crazy. I mean, Carr's all right. I don't see him going crazy, but they could have a game where there's not a lot of turnovers and pretty much first turnover loses the game or last team with the ball wins. But their division is just too talented and tough. So, I mean, I think they'll still be probably top 6 or 8 for sure.
Yeah. So we talk about boom. Let's talk about bust. It's kind of hard to pick a bust fantasy defense because, like I just said, you really never know. You take them. Nobody's really taking them 5th pick. I mean, in our league, if you do, you're kicked out immediately. I'll literally kick you out.
I'm taking the Packers defense number 8.
Yeah. I think we can vote as a group. You're out.
That's the league's team now, basically.
Yeah, I mean, who do you think is going to be there? I mean, Dallas, bust because people might think they're going to be number one, which they're not going to be. But I don't think they're going to be a bust necessarily because I think they're still going to get a lot of sacks, maybe a lot of turnovers. But who do you guys got as the bust? Who got?
I can't even say because defenses get hot. They come together.
If I had to pick a, I just got too much respect for the Steelers. I could see it, but I'm not going to say that.
I can't pick them. I can't.
You know, if my father-in-law listen, he's gonna be mad at me for saying this, but I'm gonna have to go with his team, the Dolphins. And the reason why is because when you look at where they ranked last year, typically they are ball control, slower pace offense. Now I think they got, you know, Waddle showed promise. Now you got Tyreek Hill. I think they're going to want to play more up tempo, which means more possessions, more points. So obviously the more points you give up, even if it's not that much, but say they give up, you know, 4 to 6 points more per game, that's going to drop their rankings down. So if they don't get those turnovers, which, be honest, I don't see them getting the turnovers, at least with other teams in their division, because you got to pay Patriots twice a year. Bill Belichick preaches disciplined football. The Bills are just outright better than you, and you're going to have to try to keep up with them. So now you have to look at the rest of their schedule to say, who are these teams that they can really, you know, be up against and play ball control, get these sacks, turnovers? Not too many teams. And like I said, I think they're trying to change their identity, which doesn't go hand in hand with their defense staying at the same level. Doesn't mean they're going to be bad, but compared to where, you know, you typically would, you know, take them, which is going to be off of last year's ranking, I see, you know, a big drop off potentially.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Good point. Paulie, who you got? Who's your bust defense? You gotta have somebody.
It's tough, man. I mean, you can say the Ravens too, because I mean they give up a lot of passing yards, but they're a stout defense, so they're not fantasy wise. I don't think the points are gonna be crazy for them. Real life, they're great. Fantasy wise, I don't think they're giving a lot of points up. And honestly, I mean, just because they piss me off, I mean, maybe the Dolphins.
Yeah. Can I give you guys one? I hate to say this too, because I always like to. I usually take them a lot of time fantasy defense, but I think they're going to be a bust this year because of kind of what you said about Miami. Denver Broncos. I think they usually think kind of the same thing as Miami. They usually kind of slow pace, run the ball. Russell Wilson likes to go deep a lot, which sometimes, you know, later in his career leads to interceptions, puts the defense more. And that division, like we just talked about, is unbelievable. Right now they're getting drafted at number 9, which, you know, is not bad.
It's risky.
Honestly, like, I see them finishing below maybe like 15, and that's kind of a bust.
That's true.
I seen 15 twice on two different lists that they're sitting at 15 actually.
I mean, you know, because like I got the pieces, but I don't know. I'd say like you just everything you just said about Miami, translate that into Denver.
That's true too.
Yeah.
The
only benefit that Denver has is playing at Denver. So I mean, their home games you might play on. They might be better, but other than that, I mean,
my Packers.
I didn't want to bring them up. They're a sleeper team. They really are a sleeper team because their defense is good, bro. Their defense is good this year.
And I'm not saying that because I'm a Packers fan. It's what they have. They take away the ball, and they get sacks. They're good for fantasy.
Yeah, they are. I had them like last year. Them and the Eagles ranked right around each other, and this year actually I had Green Bay above them because, like you just said, they're more sacks, better, you know, turnovers. So we'll see. We got to talk about our favorite position before we close this out. We got to talk about the kickers. Man, we're not going to do too much time on the kickers. We're going to throw them in.
I'm just going to say it straight up. If it's not Justin Tuck, there's no list.
He ain't my number one.
Are you serious? Are you high? Are you on LSD? Are you on speed? Which one? Is it the fucking steroids?
Hold on, I'm about to pull this up. This is interesting.
Evan McPherson has never missed a kick. Yo, no,
Hold on. What's Evan McPherson's long ball?
I don't give a fuck. That man was wild.
And what's Justin Tuck's long ball?
I don't give a fuck.
He's a 60. He can make a 60 every fucking game.
Where did Justin Tucker finish last year in stats and kickers? He wasn't number one. It was
McPherson. It was McPherson. I keep it real.
It was actually Dan Carlson from Las Vegas. He was number one. So, like, get it right.
Wow. We thought it was McPherson.
Listen, if we're drafting in real life, Justin Tucker 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in fantasy football wise, you got to look at the teams that are going to put up fucking numbers, and you got to look at the guy from Buffalo, Tyler Bass. He's the number one.
Ooh, Tyler Bass. Yeah, Tyler Bass. Yeah.
Fair.
Okay.
Ranked number one on like everybody's list, and I laugh. Like, I get it. The guy's good, but like, come on. Like, he didn't even have a great year. He wasn't even top 10 list. He was number 8.
The thing about it is, too, and it's not his fault. He could be great. Buffalo has some rough winners. So even as much as they score outside, I want a guy who's just going to, you just a lineup block, put him in, do your job, basically don't fuck up. So it might not be his fault, but you might get a doing off the upright. It might be 30-mile-per-hour wind and you miss, or because it's so bad, he might not get the same opportunity where they say, you know what, we'll just go for 2 right now. So I don't know about that one.
Yo, I mean, look, kickers are like, all right, if you don't get like the top, like, listen, it's the kickers. Number 1 was Carlson. He had 174. Number 10 was Hopkins from LA Chargers. He had 147. Okay. It ain't that far of a fall off for you to really worry about it. No. I mean, unless you have like one of them crazy years where like I believe Justin Tucker had like 75 more points than like the next guy. But like,
honestly, I don't even care. I don't even care.
Yeah, I don't
because the thing about it is when you talk about the 75 points things, it sounds great, but again, like I said before,
it's really
fantasy is a weekly game. You're not getting all 75 points in that one game or over a month. You're over the course of a whole like per game. You're talking about maybe 1 extra field goal. So what?
Yeah, I agree. I want to talk about a sleeper kicker though. That like if you're like me, you don't really have to worry about drafting your kicker. I literally whenever my last pick is, I say, all right.
It could be the kicker. That's what I did.
Like, for example, let's say you got Matt Prater, you got Dustin Hopkins, and you got Jake Elliott. I'm gonna take Jake Elliott because he's from the Eagles.
Just because,
Probably not, but it's not gonna be that much of a difference. I don't care. But I want to talk about a bounce back who's gonna be the comeback player of the year. My man glasses, Rodrigo Blankenship. He's gonna be comeback player of the year because he's actually gonna remember how to make a goddamn field goal. He took a picture with DK Metcalf and then he forgot how to kick. Like, I don't know what happened last year.
Listen, pick my man Young Ho Ko.
Ho.
Easily the greatest nickname. Easily the greatest name in football right now. Young Ho Ko.
Yeah, if you actually look at these kickers' names, like listen to these names. You got Tyler Bass, Matt Gay, Harrison Butler, Matt Prater. You got Rodrigo, Young Ho Ko. Like these kickers got some like man.
They can sweat. Listen, they ain't got nothing else going on.
Look at the other guys. I love the Houston guy, Kaimi Fairbairn, like that guy's name.
Yeah.
But yeah, kickers, like we don't care about them. I just wanted to talk about them because we want to talk about them. But
Mason Crosby, first round pick.
Honestly, just get a dome kicker or a kicker that's on the elite offense. That's what I try to stick to.
It's safe. Get a dome kicker. Safe.
At the end of the draft, like let's say we're going around 14, 15, 16. I'm not going to go out of my way to draft Justin Tucker because he's number 1. I'd rather have the position guys because like you're going to need them. But hey, if you want to take Justin Tucker in round like 13 or 14, by all means go ahead. I'm pretty sure nobody in our league will except maybe Rock. Rock might. He might take Justin Tucker around like 10. Nah, he knows it.
Don't let us be live around that time, yo. Don't let us be live while he's making that.
I was just thinking about it. If everybody can, we need to do a live fantasy draft on here as a podcast. Because do you remember last year's draft?
When we come to the crib.
Yo, well, do you remember last year's draft? You got that little chat thing on Yahoo.
Yeah.
You guys remember? Were you in it? Because some people weren't in it, but we had the video chat on the right side, and as Craig was making his pick, he was getting pulled over by a cop. Do y'all remember that?
Yeah.
That.
He was like, "Oh shit, hold up!" And the cops like pulling him over. He's like, "I was making my fantasy pick."
Because you like Fedor.
Oh man, it was fucking hilarious. That shit was.
That's because he loves Fedor.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday's about to take an L. We might never see him again. Well, anyway, y'all, fantasy football, I'm hyped for it. We got our draft coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I got to say good luck to you guys. As much I want to whoop your ass, I do want to make it competitive. I hope it's competitive like last year in our league because that was a lot of fun. It was worth it.
I mean, it was definitely competitive. The thing about it is, I had a lot of injuries on my team. So what I always tell people is, like I said, fantasy football is a weekly game. Try to want to know as much as possible. Don't be afraid to hit that waiver wire. And when you get injuries, don't quit until it's over. Until it's actually over, it's never over.
Never.
Yes. That's true. I agree with you there. But other than that, you guys got anything else you want to talk about fantasy football? Or are we good to go? All right. Well, Steve, again, thanks for coming on. You guys make sure you go check him out on social media. Much in the Clutch. He's going to be making our gear, and he makes whatever you want. Best in the game. I promise you guys that. And he's our fantasy football champion until the end of this year. Until the end.
And then I get to be back-to-back.
Oh, here he goes.
We are going to get a trophy this year. So, hey, I'll
add it to the collection. I got a couple. Like I said, I got some rings. I didn't actually get a Stoop Life ring.
We're gonna make.
Well,
we honestly last year we didn't really know how good we were gonna grow. Like, but we grew a lot.
Yeah, we grew. We have two.
We didn't get you one right now. We're gonna get you one. We're gonna get you one from last year.
Listen,
and we'll try and see what we.
I'll take it. I'm not gonna complain, but winning is winning.
Speaking of winning, if you were a winner, which winner would you be? Would you be Jordan? Would you be Kobe? Or would it be Derek Jeter? My man, the captain. They're all winners, though.
Are you saying? Are you making me like correlate my fantasy success or just picking one?
Which fantasy player would you like? Are you a Jordan type of fantasy player, a Kobe, or like a Jeter fantasy football champion?
I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna say like a Kobe because right now between my two leagues, I do actually have exactly 5 chips. Like I said, I got my rings and stuff. I didn't get one for the Stoop Life, but I got 5. Don't get me wrong, Jordan's dominance was great, but if you look at most sports, even the NBA, he's pretty much the only person that's undefeated in championship play. And that's part of the reason I don't think the 90s was the best. You're always the favorites, you always won, so there's not as much adversity. And I would definitely say like Kobe.
All right, yo, Paul. The only reason I asked him that is because people don't understand. Like some people, they go into fantasy and they look at their lineup.
Yeah.
Like I lost to Steve because he did a better job at looking at my lineup than I did at looking at his lineup. Because I look at other people's waiver wires and what they're doing and how they need it weeks ahead of time to know if I should pick this guy up or not. Steve was ahead of me on that. And that's why Steve
I'm Mr. 5
up,
a.m. Yeah. Waiver Wednesday, I'm Mr. 5 a.m. And PJ was like, damn, every time I look, you're like, oh, you just be making moves. I'm getting alerts on my phone. And I'm doing it in my other leagues too.
And I'm up at that time. I don't think he fucking went to sleep yet. That's the thing. But
depending on the day, I might not have. I've been
around him. I've been around him on these nights. Like I know how he is. Like he probably didn't go to sleep yet. So
but yo, that's why I wanted to ask you because some people listen, I want to win the win and I want to win the money, both things. And when you picked up Rashad Penny last year and he scored like 40 points in that final week, I was like, this motherfucker got him 10 minutes before me.
No, you know what's so funny though, Bobby? I think it was like either a week or 2 before that. I wanted to get Miles Sanders and you took him. So that to me was like my get back. I was like, shit, I wanted him. He finished with 0 touchdowns, but I thought like he's due for one. He's going to make a run at the end of the year, and he was getting some yards. He just didn't score. So I had to look at all my other options, and it just like I think that was probably the next highest person I had as a waiver claim. So I just went for him.
Yeah, it was good, and you won. So, but anyway, guys, thanks for listening, and good luck this year, fellas. Steve,
likewise,
taking that L.
I didn't go undefeated, so it's about going 3-0 in the playoffs. That's it.
That's true.
And he's champ. He got the target on his back. Got to beat the champ to be the champ. So,
yep. All right, fellas, y'all be good.
Peace.